Images for the Future is currently, so it's a project which is ongoing. In total it will last 7 years. It's almost 3 years in the running and there's 4 more years to go. And it is a really big, in Netherlands it's the biggest and it's probably one of the biggest in the world, projects to digitize audiovisual material which is stored in archives. In this case we have 3 different archives. One is the Institute for Sound and Vision, which basically collects all the material which is produced and broadcast by the public broadcasting stations in the Netherlands. And it also collects some kind of other collections, for example, like the video collection of the government propaganda office and things like that. Then the second organization is the Film Museum, which is the Film Museum, the name says it, so it's a mixture between a cinema, but they also have a large library of basically all the films which have been produced in the Netherlands since the beginning of filmmaking, and a couple of other films, for example, stuff which is like films which are relevant to the Netherlands because they deal with topics which are relevant to the Netherlands. So they also have a big archive. And then finally the National Archive, and in the case of the National Archive keeps all kind of stuff, but for this project we only deal with their photography collection. So think of all the pictures of official pictures of politicians in time and stuff like that. So this project is maybe 2/3 pure digitization, like taking the analog material and making digital material out of it. And 1/3 is all kinds of activities around it. And one important one of it is generating metadata, which is relevant. So there's a number of experiments for actually crowdsourcing the process of using metadata. There's this thing which is called Veio, which is basically an engine where you play fragments of video and then people have to give keywords, and if the keywords match, then if there's more than one person who uses the same keyword, then this will go into there. So there's a lot of, there's a mix between user-generated metadata, very highly specialized professionals working on metadata, machine-generated metadata. It's a multiple tier approach to it. The archives are still very careful or very hesitant to release material under open Creative Commons licenses, and we're using this to see what the effects are. For example, if you look at it, you will see that all the material which is on there currently, or most of the material, has an attribution share-alike license, which means you need to give attribution if you use it, and it can be remixed, and if you remix it with other material, it needs to stay in there. It is the same license that Wikipedia uses for content on Wikipedia, and the idea is to make these videos, which are often about historical events, available for Wikipedia. And we're working, for example, with Wikipedia to have an import script that will basically take content off open images and make it available through the Wikimedia Commons, which is basically the multimedia database that is backing up the multimedia content of Wikipedia. I do think that there is a role for government, and the role for government is to step in situations where there is no market mechanisms to determine what is a fair compensation for authors when archives use their works, to determine some kind of mechanism. This has happened before. I mean, this is obviously much more fundamental, because we're now talking about basically access from your home to the world's library and the world's audiovisual archive and everything. But structurally, it's the same like the idea when the photocopying machine came into being, and there was this thing, oh, these things are useful, but they can also be used to copy books which people otherwise would buy, and we need to find some kind of reimbursement mechanisms. And this is also not really a market thing, because so government or government stepped in and established some rules, and you probably have to look at these kind of like historical precedents to see how you can solve this situation we have now. The library is usually a very hierarchically structured entity. You usually have like the National Archive and the National Library on top of a pyramid, and then it goes down. But the idea is like, or Library of Congress, that in this one national thing, everything needs to be in the same place, which probably comes from the time when people were still traveling on horses and stuff. And if you would go like to the central place, it made sense that everything was in one place, because actually it made stuff much more accessible. And this logic, of course, is gone. There is no need, like there's literally no need that probably every European national library has the complete works of Goethe or the complete works of Shakespeare in it, or a great deal. Like this replication doesn't really make sense. So you can also specialize, and you can also, of course, decentralize and actually involve ordinary citizens or non-state actors in preserving and making stuff accessible. In a way, if you look at Wikipedia, that is also an organization which is very decentralized and structures information. Or if you look, personally, I think you can learn quite a lot from communities which share copyright protected works for, like, I mean, these kind of like underground around BitTorrent sites. There is sites which are specialized around like collecting art house movies or collecting documentary movies. And usually these sites at the moment have far better archives in terms of completeness, and of course in terms of accessibility, if you happen to be a member of one of these communities, than the official archives, because they just decided we are not going to accept these artificial restrictions imposed on us by copyright law, that something can only be seen in this country right now and maybe in another country 2 years later, and by the way, nobody may share that stuff. And that is probably also mechanisms where you can learn from. The more information that becomes available, the more important it is that we have also people who are trained in working with this information. So librarians, like people who know a great deal about archival things, historians, that kind of people will probably become more important. I guess like the job will not be the same, because like the idea of the I mean, I talk to a lot of librarians, and they are really attached to the physical object of the book. But I mean, it's not necessary. I don't see librarians as keepers of books or bookkeepers. I mean, librarians aren't bookkeepers. That's an entirely other profession. They are more like people who help you navigate information. It's obviously we can't store all the stuff that we produce forever, and I think the intelligence of what to store and what to forget pretty much needs to be a good mix between like highly trained professionals, people who just love certain things and would never want them to go away, and probably also some role for Google and its algorithms in there which say, hey, this is the most popular video of cats falling down the stair. We should keep this because it's more popular than the 25,000 other ones we have. So it's difficult, but I think we're only at the beginning of this kind of like total information overload scenario, and something's gonna evolve out of that.